Today, I'm going to do something a little different, and that is talk about how men are being discriminated against. That's right. Men are being discriminated against, and this was one of Pearly Thing's most viral rants. And that's what we're going to get into the 7 ways that men are being discriminated against. And you don't even have to take my word for it. You can go check out Pearly Things and her channel. And this is was a bit of an eye opener to me because I didn't think about some of these things. But in this video, I'm going to reveal the 7 ways that men are being discriminated against and why you need to be aware of this. All right, if you're new to my channel, welcome. My name is Kane. I'm the Silver Bachelor. This channel is 100% dedicated to dating advice for older guys and the women that want to understand them. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, hit the subscribe button and the notification button because I'm dropping videos every week. All right, so I've seen many videos from Pearly Things, and she is an advocate for men. I appreciate that. This video, or these tips, these things that she said, the 7 things, is basically one of her most viral rants. I decided to kind of summarize from the various videos she's done on the 7 ways that men are being discriminated against. And look, I am not like against women by any means. I love women, but I'm also a man, and I'm very aware of what's going on in society, especially today, and I like my masculinity. I'm proud of it. So let's get into these 7 ways that men are being discriminated against. Okay, number 1 is misogyny. All right. As soon as you speak facts, and I'm going to give you some examples, as soon as you speak facts and you are just putting the facts out there, right, and voicing your opinion, I think of Charlie Kirk. I think of videos on TikTok where these men are just speaking facts and you're now all of a sudden labeled as a misogynist, okay? So here's an example of something, right, is that when I think of abortion, and I did a couple videos on this, I did not realize this. And yes, women have a choice. I'm not saying I'm pro-life by any means. It's her body and also her consequences. But here's the truth. The truth is, since 1980, more than 3 billion humans have been killed with abortion. 3 billion, okay? In the history of wars, all wars in history, men have killed a little bit over 500 million humans. You've got 500 million humans that have been killed in all the wars of history compared to 3 billion humans that have been killed by abortion. And yet, this is my point. And yet, when I posted a video on TikTok about this, all of a sudden I was labeled as a misogynist, toxic masculinity, rage bait, whatever, because women don't want to hear the facts. And in today's society, when you start to say the facts, it's like you're labeled now all of a sudden misogyny, which by the way, misogyny, the definition has changed. The original definition of misogyny meant the hatred of women. Well, now it means all kinds of things. If you say anything negative about women, you're a misogynist. So that's the number 1 thing, not in this order, but one of the ways that men are being discriminated against is they're all of a sudden being labeled misogynistic, misogyny, because they're talking about facts and they're embracing their masculinity. Number 2 way men are being discriminated against is with what's called toxic masculinity. Again, here you are, you're either mentioning some things that are factual, you're embracing your masculinity, you like to show some pictures of you shooting guns, chopping wood, whatever, and it's now labeled toxic masculinity, which is total bullshit. Okay. Number 3, this is a big, big one, is woke ideology. When I think of trans, I think trans people. When I think of all kinds of things happening in society, cross-dressers, whatever, if you speak up against it and you say, or pronouns, if you say, no, I'm not going to call you they, them, I'm not going to call you whatever it is that you want to be called because it's not true. So let's say, for example, a trans person says, you must call me a woman, and you decide and you say, well, no, but you're not a woman, so I'm not going to call you a woman. All of a sudden, you're labeled as something. It's hate. And woke ideology means you must agree or else. And that is one clear way that men are being discriminated against, because men know that if one thing is not true, why do you now have to embrace that as truth when it's not? Okay. So if it's clearly a guy, but he's just dressing like a woman and he's saying, call me a woman, and somebody says, well, no, but you're not a woman. Now you are hated for it. You're discriminated for it. Okay. That was also Pearly Thing's point, and also my point. Betatization, right? Again, it's like many men in relationships are being betatized by their wives because their wives can't stand the fact that the man wants to lead in the relationship, or they are fully against the patriarchy. Well, here it's a wake up call, ladies. The patriarchy is never going anywhere. You know why? Because men are ultimately the superior sex. We are stronger, we are faster, as examples, and there's many other things. But the only way the patriarchy is going to change is if women use men to control men, all right? But the betatization of men is another way that men are being discriminated against. Number 5, men are being discriminated against when it comes to divorce. 70% of all divorces are filed by women. And by the way, that number climbs up to 90% when the woman is college educated. So men are being discriminated against in a marriage situation because men are mostly all in. They're committed. And there's very few men statistically that are willing to throw in the towel and file for a divorce. So this is another way that men are being discriminated against. Number 6, DEI. Yeah, diversity, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Okay. You're punished for being masculine and telling the truth, okay? And if you're not inclusive to everything and you have an opinion about it, oh, again, I think of Charlie Kirk and how terrible that was, and him being assassinated because he had an opinion. I think that is absolutely terrible that somebody would be assassinated just because they have a different view and a different opinion. All right. So that's number 6 is DEI. Number 7 is social shaming, right? And being called misogynist. Again, guys, I have this YouTube channel. I go to TikTok and I go to Instagram with some of my shorts and I see it. I'm just posting a fact. And the vile backlash that I get, mostly from women, because they don't want to hear the truth and it's always just a bunch of excuses. But I'm not going to allow me to stop my opinion and also what is actually facts. And I'm going to keep saying it. And that's another way that men get discriminated against. It's like, whoa, you can't even voice your opinion or voice what's true because people want to live in fantasy land and 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 not actually accept what's truth. So you might be wondering, all right, Silver Bachelor, that's all fine and dandy, and men are being discriminated against, and like, why is this? Well, at the end of the day, let me tell you this. The reason why men are being discriminated against is because women don't want to compete with men. Ooh, the competition is fierce, right? Men are good. They are good at a lot of things. We are, like I said, we are stronger. We are faster. Of all the billionaires in the world in terms of wealth, only 3%, excuse me, I believe it's 12%. Only 12% of all the billionaires are men. And most of the women that are in the 12% got it from a divorce. Okay. When I think of leadership, when I think of the Fortune 1000 CEOs, 1,000 CEOs of the Fortune 1000, only 3% are held by women. And women will come up with all these excuses. Well, it's because they're discriminating against. Here's the thing that women don't understand. Men are so competitive that they will hire the best person for the job, ultimately. And today, you cannot discriminate like that. And here's a fun fact, okay? this whole wage gap and, a man who does one job and the woman doing the same job will get paid less. Yeah, you know what? When you look at everything, that statistically, there's only a 3 to 4% difference in what the man makes versus the woman makes for the same job. And you might be thinking, whoa, 3% to 4%, that's significant. This is what it comes down to. Did you know that only 38% of people that are given a job offer ever actually negotiate? Only 38%. And of that 38%, 48% of men negotiate, compared to 34% of women negotiate. And that's essentially one of the biggest differences why there's a 3 to 4% range, is because men are better at negotiating salaries. Okay. When you strip the wage gap is a myth. Why? Because they took the average jobs of all the jobs that women do and what they get paid, and the average job of all the men, of what the men do and what they get paid. And of course, men make more because they have jobs, they take more dangerous jobs, they work longer hours, and their field of study, they typically go into construction sciences and engineering type work, which pay more. So women do not negotiate nearly as much as men when it comes to salaries, and women are not nearly as willing to relocate. And that is a big factor with a lot of these more senior jobs that pay better because they want you to relocate. Okay. But at the end of the day, a lot of this is just excuses because women don't want to compete with men, because when you compete with men, competition is fierce, okay? Because men are willing to work longer hours, they're willing to relocate, and this whole branding men as toxic masculinity and misogyny and all this stuff is just one excuse and way for women to try and get an advantage over men, because like I said, the competition is fierce, and at the end of the day, women don't want to compete with men. So this video was a bit of a rant, but like I said, I've watched a lot of Pearly Things videos, and I thought, I want to summarize some of these things, these 7 things on how men are actually being discriminated against. But I want to hear from you in the comments what you think, and we'll see you next time.